Capitol Hill, where lawmakers are turning a critical eye on aircraft maker Boeing. Two different Senate committees examining the training and safety procedures of Boeing employees. Questions are growing about the company's manufacturing processes after a door plug panel blew off an Alaska Airlines flight back in January. That plane was a Boeing 737 MAX jetliner. Several whistleblowers who used to work for Boeing testified at a Senate Homeland Subcommittee today. One accused Boeing of a criminal cover-up after that door plug incident.
The NTSB chair reiterated to Congress last week that Boeing has said there are no records documenting the removal of the Alaska Airlines door. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is a criminal cover-up. Records do, in fact, exist. I know this because I've personally passed them to the FBI. Boeing's corporate leaders continue to conceal the truth. They continue to mislead and deceive the public about the safety of the planes. That is the safety culture at the top of the Boeing company right now.
A panel of aviation experts recently released a report that criticized Boeing's safety culture as, quote, inadequate and confusing. With more on today's hearings, we are joined now by a journalist that covers aviation better than just about anybody, travel journalist Peter Greenburg. Peter, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
So what was your big takeaway from this hearing?
Well, it's basically the appetizer prior to the main meal. We've been seeing these claims for quite some time. They're now starting to come out in numbers. Of course, they still have to be verified, but it goes back not just to the safety culture at Boeing, but to Boeing's relationship with the FAA, the regulatory agency that should have been watching the store from day one. And that's what came out again today in the hearings, that Boeing was consistently allowed to self-certify the safety of the and the airworthiness of their own aircraft. That is a huge conflict of interest, and that's one of the reasons why the FAA has now just stepped up and said no planes can be delivered to airlines by Boeing until the FAA inspects them. That sounds like a good position to take, with one small problem. The FAA doesn't have the inspectors to do it. They never did. And so unless Congress gives them more money to hire and then train the inspectors, the assembly line at Boeing will essentially be stopped.
You said this is the appetizer to the main course. What's the main course?
The main course is the criminal probe that's being basically reopened by the Justice Department against Boeing's behavior. So the question here is whether or not, first of all, the claims are verified. And if they are, then the big question, what did Boeing know? When did they know it? And what did they do about it? Because if they knew something and didn't know it, didn't do anything about it, that forms the basis of criminal negligence.
And could there be potential changes or liability with the FAA based off of what you're saying, or new oversight from Congress for them?
Well, that's what's needed right now. The problems go right back to the FAA because the FAA basically let this behavior happen, not just for a year or 3 years, but for over 40 years. The FAA was just never equipped, if you will, to do the job it was supposed to do because it had its own conflict of interest. When it was established by an act of Congress way back in 1935, it had a dual mandate. Mandate number one, which I think we can all embrace, is to enact and enforce safety. But mandate number two, which is the conflict of interest, is it was also supposed to promote the business of aviation. You cannot do both. And until they address that dual mandate, that's impossible, this behavior may continue.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks that might be packing their bags to get on a Boeing flight even tonight. Should people be concerned if they've got to travel on one of these planes?
Well, you should always be concerned. I'm concerned as a journalist, but I should also tell you this. In 2023, 37 million flights around the world, only one fatal incident back in January of 2023, and that was in Nepal. Those are great odds. Here's the challenge. We're not going to be able to improve that safety average because it's so good. The challenge is, can we maintain it? And what's coming out in Capitol Hill right now gives you reason to wonder whether or not that can be done.
So bottom line, what is next when it comes to Boeing? Where do we go from here?
It goes right back to the FAA. They need the resources, the money, the staff, the training to do the job they're supposed to do and go back and certify the planes as safe and then certify each plane as it comes down the assembly line as airworthy and safe. That needs to be done by the agency and not delegated to the manufacturer.
Nobody does it better than Peter Greenburg. I said at the beginning of this conversation, and he once again delivered that tonight. Peter, thank you so much for your expertise.
You got it.